You're listening to the Unshamed podcast. We talk about important topics that are culturally taboo when it comes to the female body, mind, and soul. We want to break down shame that surrounds these topics so that women can be empowered in their everyday lives. Make sure to like and subscribe and share this with your friends. Hey guys, welcome to the Unshamed podcast. Today we're going to talk about STIs. Yay! All the gory and not so gory details about different STIs. We'll talk about symptoms, tests, and where you can go in Ireland to get tested for STIs. I think one thing we need to get out of the way is there's a lot of shame that wraps around people who find out that they have STIs. You're not going to find that here. Not going to happen. We are going to be honest. Some symptoms, like, they can be kind of gross, but there's also other gross things like colds, crazy diarrhea, stuff like that, which, by the way, I feel like we should have an episode dedicated to stories about, like, have you ever had diarrhea in public or something like that? So stay tuned for that, because that will be hilarious. And also, like, if you're grossed out by stuff, maybe don't listen to that one. But about STIs, I think since the last episode or previous episode in the past, I'd mentioned a couple of ideas of where you can go to get tested in Ireland. And I did a little more digging into testing sites and prices and stuff. And I put myself in the shoes of somebody looking for answers, which was an interesting experience. I didn't feel, when I looked at these websites and stuff, I didn't feel super welcomed. I didn't feel really supported. I didn't feel like this information was really easy to access. I felt like I was just really digging. I actually felt really overwhelmed just by the sheer amount of what was going on, like what I was trying to find. Here's where you can go, but that's all the information that we'll give you. You need to ring them to find out more as far as like prices or details or what it's going to be like or anything like that. If I was in a moment where I was panicked and freaked out and there was something going on with my body, I would have massive internet fatigue at this point. Really. I felt like I had to search for a lot of answers that really could be more simply accessible. And I've also felt put off by how frigging expensive everything is. Gosh, it's really expensive to get tested and treated for stuff. The public health clinic where I used to work many moons ago in the States, they had a sliding scale based on income. And if I'm remembering it right, there were a few people who didn't have to pay at all because of their income status. So it actually kind of blows my mind that in a country where healthcare is easier to access in general, that STI testing and treatment and birth control, things like a marina, are so cost prohibitive. It's really shocking. So that's a little depressing, because it's not like when you go get tested for an STI or treated for it, it's not like something you're spending money on something that brings you lots of joy. You're spending money on a nerve-wracking test or more expensive, the treatment for a disease that could be dangerous if you leave it untreated. So it's not super fun to have to spend that money. Okay, end of soapbox. So in this episode, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about some basic symptoms and risks of STIs, stuff like that. And then we're going to talk about where you can go in Ireland for testing and treatment. So, also a disclaimer, if you don't like gross stuff, maybe don't eat while you listen to this, or don't eat eclair, stuff that's gross. I mean, I think an eclair is gross. So disgusting. But anyway, just don't eat something while you listen to this, and you have been warned. So there we go. Okay. So symptoms and risks. So, some things don't have symptoms. So it's important to know that, not every dangerous thing oozes or looks super scary. It doesn't always look terrifying. So there's... I don't know why, I just thought it was something funny. Anyway, so there's, something I mentioned in a previous episode too, that goes along with this feeling of shame surrounding testing and treatment for these infections. Not everybody who has an STI looks like they have one. Okay, let's go back. Whether we admit it or not, I think maybe culturally we've been programmed to feel like people who have STIs look unwashed, or they're just like a certain type of person or whatever, or we have been conditioned to have this unconscious bias about the quote types of people who have STIs. And honestly, like before my training and work, I never realized that bias existed. I just kind of assumed that the same people who have STIs are the same people who, like, I don't know, they might not shower, or they sleep with tons of people, or whatever. It's a dangerous assumption, because it's like discriminating based on how maybe somebody looks, or an assumption of somebody. Just like many people assume that with unplanned pregnancy, oh no, she wasn't thinking straight or whatever. Well, that's a dangerous assumption too, because so many unplanned pregnancies happen, and they're just people going about their normal lives, really intelligent people who care and are trying their best, and it just happens. And people who catch things aren't, unclean, or they're not, it's not like they're not smart people. Really smart people and really clean people catch the flu, common cold all the time. So we need to kind of catch ourselves when we might be having this unconscious bias, or we might feel like, oh, I'm safe because I'm not that kind of a person. But we're all in the same boat. We're all the same risk. I think that unconscious bias thing too is sort of reinforced by pop culture stuff. I mean, who else, spent their high school, teenage, college years watching Friends? Me. I think, how come we never saw Rachel and Joey over at the Holtz apartment, getting their getting their antibiotics for something that they caught from one of their partners, because they had quite a few partners. But also, they also lived in Manhattan, and they could afford it, making no money and stuff like that. So, I mean, the show overall isn't realistic. But okay, so here's like the news that may be scary, and you probably already know this. You definitely know this. STIs are everywhere, and they don't discriminate. They infect all types of people from every social status, intelligence level, you name it. It sucks because, like what I was saying before, the unconscious bias thing can affect a person the other way around. Oh, shoot, I got an STI. I must be stupid. No way. No way are you stupid. It's a risk everyone takes when they have sex. It's a risk you take. So even the very first time you have sex, it's a risk you take. So just because somebody looks clean, seems intelligent, seems, safe, don't let your guard down. Don't let your guard down. Condoms are not expensive, super easy to get, easy to use. Banana practice. Do some banana practice. So we'll talk about the various diseases. Well, they're not really diseases anymore. We call them infections. When I was doing nursing training, grad school, everything, it was at the time when we were starting to transition from STD to STI. And while we were in the training, they were like, it's not STD anymore, it's STI. And we were like, oh, okay, So we had to change our language. And that was the time when language is changing. So first one, chlamydia. It's from bacteria, so you can get antibiotics for it. Yay. Hopefully it doesn't become resistant, please, Lord Jesus. It's actually the most commonly diagnosed STI in Ireland. So that's the one you should be watching out for. Most people don't have any symptoms. Fun fact, or not so fun, 7 in 10 women won't know they're infected unless they're tested. So that should get you in the door to the clinic to get yourself tested. And if you do have symptoms, which they can show up as long as a month after getting it, so that's why this is so easy to spread around. They can include bleeding after you have sex, changes in your period, changes in any vaginal discharge, pain when you pee, and tummy pain. Especially the tummy pain is one you want to watch out for, because if that infection goes untreated, chlamydia can cause something called pelvic inflammatory disease, PID. I don't know, you might have heard of that. It's a scary thing. It can cause scarring on the inside of your body. It can lead to increased risk later for infertility or ectopic pregnancy later on. So you really want to make sure that doesn't happen. Infection number 2 is gonorrhea. Not as common as chlamydia. It's also from bacteria. And, everyone's also crossing their fingers that this one doesn't become resistant as well. And so, like chlamydia, this one is also mostly infecting younger people under age 25. So this is one to look out for if you're in college there. And this one is more of a pain, literally, more of a pain for guys than for girls, actually. For once, women don't know they have it and can pass it to their partners, who can end up with lots of pain and burning when they pee. That's the guy thing. Lots of pain there. So that one's not so fun. Get tested. Make sure you do. Third infection is called trichomoniasis, or trick for short. Because we're filming this at the time of Halloween, so immediately my brain wanted to call this episode Trick or Treat, but spelled like TRICH, like the disease. And Blake goes, "You can't do that. No one's going to understand." And I'm like laughing and thinking, this is the most hilarious and witty title ever. And he's like, "No." So I was like, fine. Well, anyway, that's what I wanted to call this. So there you go. So trichomoniasis, it's caused by something similar to bacteria called protozoa. And when you look at it under the microscope, you look at it and it's doing this weird little dance. And if you're listening to this, you can't see it, but I'm doing a little like hands over my head body wiggle thing. It wiggles around and it's got a little tail, and it's creepy, man. It's creepy under the microscope, but guess what? It's treatable. Kill that little thing with some meds. Get rid of it. The symptoms, they're not fun. It's for guys and girls. You get a green kind of foamy, it's disgusting, discharge that happens for everybody. And it can smell really fishy when that happens. So if that's going on, that's probably what you've got. Don't worry, it's treatable. So infection number 4 is HPV, human papillomavirus. There are a few types of HPV. Some cause warts on the outside of the skin, and some can cause penile or cervical cancer, which that kills a lot of women every year. It's really scary. That's why smear tests are so important. If you are at least 21, go get yourself a test. If you haven't, like in Ireland, you're usually contacted by the government to make your appointment and go do it. If no one has contacted you, make sure you get that done. Make sure you figure that out for yourself, because you're important enough to take care of and make sure that you're doing okay. There's no cure for HPV. Genital warts are what we call the warts from HPV. There's no treatment. There's no treatment you can do that will cure it, but there is treatment that can take care of the outbreaks when they happen. So like there's cream at home that you can do, or there's a wart freezing procedure called cryotherapy that can happen in a doctor's office, where they go and they kind of zap the warts off. You can get it through skin-to-skin contact. So an infected skin touches your skin. And a lot of people who are infected don't show symptoms, so you don't always know. So that's, again, one of the things. Looks can be deceiving. You can't always know. I've seen a lot of sad things in nursing, some obviously really tragic and some not so much. And there was one thing that kind of sticks out of my brain from my time at the health department. So there was a guy who came in, and he thought everything was fine. He was just coming to get checked out. Something wasn't quite right. He was telling me about himself. He was a student, just entered college, really smart guy, super nice guy. And I had to tell him, "Hey, I'm sorry, but it looks like you have HPV. That's with genital warts and all that." I was telling him, next step stuff, and eventually had to get around to the fact that I had to tell him there was no cure for what he had. And he came in smiley, hopeful, all that. And I think the weight of it just hit him that he would have this forever and be at risk for passing this on to whoever he was with in the future. And he just started crying. He leaned over and just started weeping. He cried and cried because he just knew that this was, even though it wasn't really going to affect him too much, it was just something that would stick with him for the rest of his life. And I've had lots of people come through the office and be told certain things, but he was the first and only person who I think I've ever seen that reaction from. He had that realization right there and was just so sad. And it was one of the saddest moments to see him having to go through that. So I know a lot of people cry on their own, and they're really upset when they find out they have these things. And it's just one of those really awful things that I wish wouldn't have to happen to anybody. Okay, moving on. Infection number 5, HSV. So that's herpes simplex virus. So there's 2 types, 1 and 2. Type 1 is what we know as cold sores. So that's what you get on your lips. Type 2 is what causes the blisters and the ulcers on genitalia. So skin that's infected with HSV, it doesn't always look infected, just like all the other stuff. That's how people spread this, to someone else without even knowing it. Lots of people carry HSV and have no idea. So it's just one of those things that, you can't always tell by looking. Once you get herpes, the virus just kind of hangs out in your system forever. It's interesting. It's kind of like what they're talking about with COVID, how they're wondering if COVID, people who get it, if it's going to stick around and flare up once your immune system's down and that kind of thing. It's been interesting to watch some of the medical experts talk about that phenomenon of that possibility. That's not a happy possibility at all. But with HSV, it does hang around in your system forever, and you may never get another outbreak again, or you might get lots of them. Typically, outbreaks happen if you're really stressed or really just worn down. You get a cold, you've been studying for exams, things are just, you're not sleeping, that kind of stuff. There is treatment for it, antiviral pills, and if the pain is really bad, you can get numbing cream to put on. But it starts out usually as like a painful red spot. That's when things are going to start moving forward. Then it moves to the painful ulcer. And that ulcer is just kind of like really tender. And then it ends up scabbing over and healthy skin grows in its place. So you're most infectious when you have this right in the middle of an outbreak. So at least you can kind of tell when you might really need to stay away from someone else and when you might be at least a little bit safer than you would have been during an outbreak. Okay, so we're almost done here. Infection number 6. There's so many infections. Why are there so many? But there are, unfortunately. Syphilis. This is the age-old, very first STI, the grandfather of them all. Oh, syphilis, caused by bacteria. It is not super common in Ireland, especially with younger people. It's not like you go, oh, fine, I'm free from syphilis. Don't have to worry about that. I think everyone should probably still make sure that they get the test. It's a blood test, and so when they do a blood test for HIV, they take the blood and they use that to test for syphilis. So you might as well just get that done too. So it starts out not too bad, one sore or a few of them, not usually painful. The sore usually pops up where the site of the infection was. So like where the bacteria entered your body, that's where the sore is. And then it goes away. But if you stay untreated, you can spread the virus around for actually 2 years. After the sore first appears, so pretty crazy. Also, if you stay untreated, that's when it kind of moves into the symptoms that involve your whole body. So sometimes these can go away completely. You could be chilling for 10 years without knowing anything, but the end stages of syphilis, they can affect your heart, your brain. That's why they talk about people having syphilis like going crazy and stuff. That doesn't usually happen because we have such great testing now. We can tell if somebody has it before they get to end stage. And so syphilis can actually kill you in the long run if you never get treated for it. So the cure is a big old shot of penicillin in your bum. It's very unpleasant, but it works. So the last one, and I think the one we've had so much, so many things go on since I was born, actually, up until now, with treatment, with scares, with so many people dying that shouldn't have died, is HIV. It was really scary there for a while before new discoveries were made. HIV meant basically that it was a death sentence, that it would most definitely turn into AIDS. These days, though, there are medications that you can take if you know you might be exposed to it or if you have been exposed to it. So if you are a person who your lifestyle puts you more at risk for acquiring HIV, then there's medication that you can take. Now, there's also side effects to that medicine. There's side effects to all these medications. But it's just how much do you want to risk getting HIV? Some people get like flu-like symptoms when they first catch HIV, but a lot of people don't even know they have it. So get tested, people. Easy, super easy to do. If you're like me and you don't like blood tests, I know it's weird. I have a nursing background, but still I have to put in headphones, and every time I have to go get my cholesterol test because I'm an old fart who likes cheese and stuff, I have to get bloods drawn every year. So I'm always a little bit weirdly nervous. So I have to put in headphones or make really awkward, weird small talk with the person taking my blood. But whatever, man. Get tested if you want to get tested for STIs. Be healthy. So where to go for testing? Last little bit here. So I Googled STI testing Ireland. And the first thing that popped up was an ad for an at-home testing kit, which sounds about as reliable as an at-home leg waxing kit. Cue the episode of Friends, actually, where they use, waxine, and try to wax their legs. But I've never heard about it before from other healthcare professionals here. So, hey, maybe it's amazing. I'm not really sure. That's one to look into. Then I came to the Sexual Wellbeing IE website. I'll give the link to that below, which it also gives you the link to HIV Ireland, which tells you of places where you can go, where this is all during COVID, so where you can still go around the country for STI screening and treatment. A lot of things have changed because of all that. However, though, because of COVID, it seems like a lot of places are limiting or stopping their services. So that worries me a lot, because that means that tons of people are going to go and fall through the cracks unless you are really trying to fight for what you need to get done. Walk-ins with no appointment, they're not happening anywhere, but that's not a huge barrier because you can make an appointment somewhere. There's a place called the Guide Clinic in St. James's in Dublin. They appear to offer all the tests needed, and there isn't anywhere on the website that looks like they charge a fee. So I hope they don't. Considering the same St. James's, public hospital, I don't think they would charge a fee. It's difficult to tell what places do and don't charge fees and what they are. So that's hard to know. However, that list from HIV Ireland appears to be really thorough, a thorough one for the whole country, give or take a few private clinics. So the list is, it's a bit annoying because it only gives email addresses and phone numbers to make appointments for things. So there's no links. There's no place to go and kind of explore on your own. You have to actually contact these people and ask them this stuff. It's helpful to have the email address as well as phone number, which is good, but it gives no direct information on prices or anything else, like where do I physically go and stuff. For my investigating, it seems that places that charge, the cost is for the whole shebang of tests can be as little as €70 or as much as €130, which is even €70 is a lot. It's been a very confusing internet journey, let's just say. I can only imagine how frustrating it is to be scared at the same time, and think you might have caught something, and you don't have cash to burn, and while you're trying to figure out, okay, what the heck, where do I go? Bottom line, for those of you who feel overwhelmed, do not be afraid to talk to a friend. Like, their STIs are so common. They're so common. And you don't have to go through this alone or feel ashamed about it. And if you're scared to talk to someone email us at unshamed@zoecommunity.ie. We're not scared. I have seen a lot, heard a lot. It's all good. And we can help you if you feel overwhelmed and you need somebody just to help you think through things. Above all else, protect yourself. First, don't be afraid to say no thanks to sex. You're not being impolite or rude or whatever. It's not a mandatory thing you have to do. In a non-committed relationship, you don't have to have sex with somebody. You're under no obligation to share your body. It doesn't make you a prude, also. It does not. It doesn't make you selfish. And you have the right, you have absolute right over your body. You have the authority to say who does and does not touch your body. So if they're not ready to commit to loving you as a human being, maybe they're not worth it. Maybe they're not. You're not a piece of meat. You're not an animal. You are part of the human species, and that gives you certain rights and certain. It makes you special. You're a beautiful, unique human who deserves to be loved. You are, and you're not anything less than that. So, if there's any person who is trying to pressure you into a casual hookup, there's your sign right there. They're not worth it. Bye-bye. See you later. So, recap. We talked about symptoms of STIs. We talked about testing details and where to go and all that. Make sure that you talk to your partner about this stuff. Lately, it's been normal to hook up without a relationship. That's kind of been the norm. And that can mean that communicating become very unsexy and awkward. But you have to ask yourself, is it worth it for me? Am I okay with risking damage to my body because of this person? A person who might not know super well. It's not just about you also. Everyone else needs to be careful in the situation too. So come back next time. We'll be switching gears and talking about things that are related to our mental health, and we'll be tackling some social norms in a few future episodes. And I think with next time, we're going to be talking actually some more about some Christmas themed things. Very exciting. So until then, keep living unshamed. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Unshamed podcast. Join us next time for another topic that we hope empowers you. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this with your friends.